Hello, this is Downley, my character in Lord of the Rings Online. I'm making this gameplay video for a class that I'm taking on Coursera titled Online Games, Literature, New Media, and Narrative. In this video, I hope to show and compare the scenery of Weathertop as described by J.R.R. Tolkien's novel, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, Peter Jackson's film of the same title, and the game Lord of the Rings Online. In the novel and film, Frodo, Sam, Merry, Pippin, and Aragorn are traveling from Bree to Rivendell, and in both they stop and stay at Weathertop. The novel explains that the characters hope to meet Gandalf here, or at least find a sign of him. During their approach, Tolkien tells us that Weathertop is huge, standing out from among many tall hills. In fact, he remarks that many of the surrounding hills are almost 1,000 feet tall, but the hobbits can still see Weathertop distinctly, even from the borders of the Midgewater Marshes, about a day and a half's walk west of the Great Hill. When they arrive, they find this sheltered hollow that I'm walking up to. In this hollow, Sam and Pippin break off to investigate, and Merry, Frodo, and Aragorn continue to the summit, looking for Gandalf or a sign of his passing through. In this hollow, the hobbits find the remains of a campfire, which we can see right here. A small spring, and it's described as having many foot tracks. I'm not sure if it's the lack of detail in the game or the passage of time that has washed them away from this little shore. Also, a bunch of firewood, which Sam neatly stacked and stowed away. The game designers really wanted to represent this scene. This hollow is described as being bowl-like, and the location of and later becomes the location of the fight between the hobbits and Aragorn and the ring wraiths. The others, that is, Merry, Frodo, and Aragorn, hike to the summit of Weathertop. It's a bit of a long hike, as Tolkien describes it, saying that it takes Aragorn about 30 minutes to plod along, and the hobbits are close behind him, but breathless when they reach the summit. At the top, Tolkien says that there is a small ring of stones, which are the remains of Aman-Sul, the watchtower atop Weathertop that stood here long ago. In the game, of course, they've taken a little bit more liberty. As we can see, there are still remains of the tower that reach down near the foot of Weathertop and provide it with a lot more interesting features than just ragged hillsides as we climb. At the top, he describes that the ground is scorched and there's a cairn of burnt stones, which we'll come upon shortly, and that all the grass that's grown over the stones of the foundation have been burned down to their roots. Additionally, they find a stone atop that cairn which has some strange runes on it. The first rune looks like a vertical line with almost a rotated parentheses mark around it. Actually, we have arrived here. So here's the cairn of stones and the scorched earth all around Downley. And this is the stone. So here's this vertical line with the two at like a 45, and then a second rune of 3 vertical lines. Aragorn surmises that this first rune stands for G, or at least he hopes so, and that could stand for Gandalf. And the 3 lines marks the date of his passing through, October 3rd, 3 days before Aragorn and the hobbits arrive. As a further scene of what the game makers have done, I'll take a stand back and show you some of the remaining ruins of Aman-Sul. So you can see there's more than just the small ring, but it does provide an atmosphere of this great, majestic, but somehow now destroyed and withered away fortress. Lastly, Tolkien describes the scene as, or at least Weathertop is providing a great view of the surrounding lowlands. Most of it's desolate, and the main feature that stands out is the old road, which we can see cutting across here. This continues all the way to the east. I'll get us a little bit better vantage point, and continues out towards Breeland. He says that it's like a ribbon, and indeed, it's like that here too. Almost like it's been casually discarded or is floating on the wind as it snakes and curls. Now, in the movie, most of the action at Weathertop takes place in the ruins of Amon Sul at top. In the scene, the hobbits and their guide approach Weathertop at dusk and camp along a ledge, not in the hollow that Tolkien describes at the foot of Weathertop. When the hobbits make their way to the summit, it is a short run, as opposed to the half-an-hour hike described in the book. This, along with the earlier shots at the side of the hill with Aragorn looking out from their camp, make the scale of Weathertop seem far smaller than in the game and in the novel. This allows the action in the scene to flow much more fluidly, even if it somewhat diminishes the magic and majesty of the mountain among the hills. While the hobbits climb and brace for battle, the ruins of Amon Sul are the backdrop and provide a sense of decay, much like we see here. The pillars are crumbling, and the grasses even begin to grow over the stone floor and moss over the half walls and pillars. The movie does not use Weathertop as a potential meeting place for Gandalf, and the tense action of the scene doesn't lend itself to an investigation of this cairn of burnt stones or ruminations over cryptic runes, so the film omits these and the imagery of the burnt earth. Finally, the film does not establish the spatial relationship between Weathertop and the old road, nor a view of what the hobbits and Aragorn would see looking out from its summit. As far as the scene in game space can be explored in detail, I hope that I have shown you most of the interesting intersections and discrepancies between the games, the movies, and their source J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings representations of Weathertop.